If we don't have money, why are the Arabs here? If we don't have money, why are the Koreans here? If we don't have money, why is every immigrant that comes to America find their way into the black community to build their empire, their American dream on the black nightmare? So we have got to change that reality.
A lot of Asian Americans too don't, in my experience, don't even realize that if it wasn't for the civil rights movement, there would not be 22 million Asian Americans in this country.
Thank you. What I have been trying to teach the Asian community is like, friends, do you understand that your success, your prosperity, your civil rights that you enjoy right now was paid for with black blood?
The new mayor of New York gets up and tells the world that immigrants built New York. I got nothing against immigrants at all, but I do have something against people who erase historical facts. Just to be clear, enslaved black people built New York and every other state in America. There's like receipts, literal receipts, with the amount of enslaved persons it took to build each city or building. The White House. Yeah, the disrespect, I'm over it. I'm done with it.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you are doing great from wherever you're watching me from. As you know, I'm your host and presenter Erasure Stories, and I'm hoping that you are doing great from, whatever you're watching me from. There is something that I have to address. It is good that Minister Farrakhan has taken the initiative to address these issues. And I think oftentimes people just forget after crossing the other side. You see, there's this story of the heir forgotten that the crocodile helped him cross on the other side, and he started taking him for granted. But the crocodile reminded the hare that, remember, you got on the other side because of us. And there's a perfect example to what is happening to Black Americans. Remember, there are so many things that Black Americans fought for to make everything right for immigrants and for any other group of people who came to the United States. But there's a sense of betrayal. There's a sense of betrayal because these people, when they got here, some of them, not all of them, some of them started betraying Black people. And Black people felt betrayed because Black people fight through the Voting Act right, through the Civil Rights Act, and so many reforms that Black people made it possible for these all other groups to come to the United States. But once they got there, they started turning their backs from Black people. They started being the favorite to white people because now they started competing with Black people through work spaces and everything. But then Black people are just reminding them, remember, all those people that are making you look like you've done great things, they are lying to you, because remember that without Black people, it couldn't been possible. Brothers and sisters, I want you to watch this video by Minister Farrakhan. He really shares an important segment in this topic of immigrants coming to the United States and starting to disrespect Black people. So I want us to watch this video, then I'll be back and then I'll be sharing my thoughts in regards to this. As you know, I'm your host and presenter Erasure Stories, and if you're watching it for the first time, I'm asking you to please subscribe to the channel, join the membership, and really get to see what I can offer you. But until then, let's get into it. I'll be back.
It's built this country. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear a man standing up cosplaying a Black American during Black History Month while dressed as a Black American looking like a cowboy. Don't you know who created cowboy? Do you not know where that come from? No. You got a grill in your mouth. Do you know where that came from? No. You won an award for music. Do you know where that music came from? No. No. So during Black History Month, we're going to make a false claim to who built America while being Black. This is not a diaspora war, because we're not getting ready to have one. The issue is misinformation being spread. There was an opportunity for you to highlight how you have benefited solely from the backs of Black Americans. Not only as even your parents being from a different country coming to America, Black Americans. The clothes and style of dress you have on, Black American. The grill inside of your mouth, Black American. The music you're singing and winning a Grammy for, Black Americans. But during Black History Month, you got your black ass on a stage in front of a sea of whites and said out of your mouth with tears. With tears. What? I'm sorry? With tears, talking about how immigrants built this country. Where are you getting your information and education from? Because I'm in a state of confusion. I am the confusion. The confusion is me. How does something like this happen? How do you benefit solely from one group of people and cry about another while looking closely, might I add? People looking at you would think you were a Black American because of everything you embody is Black American. What are you taught? Use your common sense. What are you talking about? And why would you use this opportunity on stage when you could have paved the way and set an example for people to give credit where credit is due? Y'all want to talk about Black Americans being so angry? Wouldn't you be angry too if somebody had you on as a costume and that person looked like they could be you and still gave credit outside of you? Wouldn't you be upset too? Wouldn't you be upset too?
I can dare say this is the only country on the face of the earth where black, brown, white, polka dotted all have equal opportunity. They can make it.
The lady who raised the point that America is a great land of opportunity, we can't deny that America has given everyone who has come opportunity. But to the blacks who built this, I suggest to you, miss, you are not qualified to speak for us. You are not qualified to speak for us. You are only qualified to represent yourself and your opinion. But really, those of us who have suffered this, we know what we're talking about. Add up what it cost, black man and woman, that don't know your name, your language, your culture, your God, your religion, nothing of your past. Add that up. That's damage to your head, isn't it? Isn't that damage? Add up the fact that for 300 years they sold us and we had no rights over our own bodies. Add up the destruction to our women and the children from these women. They were in church. They wouldn't even let us read the Bible. They locked the Bible from us. And anybody that taught us how to read would be chastised. 300 years we were not allowed to read. See, this is why foreigners don't know why we are backward, because they think we are playing on an even playing field with all other Americans. They do not know what has happened to our head. There's not a Korean here that don't know he's a Korean, speak the Korean language. Show me a Palestinian in this audience that is not in the knowledge of his own history, his own language, his own culture. Show me a Greek or an Italian or a Polish person, an Irish person that don't know their history. But look at 30 million black people wearing white folks' name: Johnson, Jones, Smith, Riley, Culpeper, Washington, green, black, brown, blue, pink, Mr. Chartreuse. Everybody speaks their own language but you.
Country singer Shabuzi and New York Mayor Zorahan Mamdani have both said that immigrants built this country. And let me be clear, immigrants have absolutely contributed to the growth and development of the United States. And today, immigrants are being targeted by cruel, unjust, and racially coded policies that must be challenged. But truth matters. The foundational wealth of this country was not created by immigrants. It was created by trafficked African people forced into chattel slavery. For more than 200 years, African people were kidnapped, sold, raped, and worked without pay. They cleared the land, they built the plantations, they harvested the cotton, the tobacco, the rice, the sugar. They generated the exports that financed the banks, insurance companies, ports, railroads, and factories. That stolen labor created enormous wealth, and that wealth built America's early economy. The opportunity that later attracted immigrants didn't fall from the sky. It was made possible by centuries of uncompensated African labor. So when people say that immigrants built this country, We have to be honest. Enslaved Africans built the foundation. Immigrants arrived into a system already enriched by that stolen labor. Both truths can exist. And today, the same white supremacist ideology that once justified slavery now animates anti-immigrant policies. It targets Black communities. It targets Latino communities. It criminalizes poverty, and it weaponizes fear. Divide and conquer has always been the strategy. Because if people ever really understood who actually created this country's wealth, the entire mythology of American exceptionalism would collapse. Honor immigrants, defend immigrants, but never erase the people whose blood, sweat, and stolen labor made America attractive to immigrants in the first place.
Immigrants did not build America. The free labor of enslaved Black people built America. And when we say otherwise, it's erasing the actual gruesome history of this country, which directly impacted Black and Native Americans. When we speak about American history, we need to be accurate and ensure we understand timelines and definitions. No Black person in the Americas, from Canada to Argentina to Brazil to Trinidad, is an immigrant. Forced migration and enslavement for the development of new countries in the New World doesn't equal immigration. Slaves built the monuments from the White House to the U.S. Capitol and the Washington Monument, often performing the quarrying, masonry, and labor. Their labor was central to the construction of early American infrastructure, particularly in Washington, D.C. and the southern states. Slaves built the ports in New York City, the flattening of all the lands in all the cities in the newly formed colonies, which then turned into America. Enslaved people built nearly all the railroad infrastructure in American South before the Civil War, constructing thousands of miles of track that connected the region. From the 1830s to 1860s, slave laborers cleared land, graded routes, and laid tracks for almost every major line east of the Mississippi and the south of the Mason-Dixon line. The nearly 9,000 miles of track in the antebellum South were almost exclusively built by slave labor, which utilized thousands of rented slaves prior to the arrival of the Chinese workers to finish the rest in the westward expansion and due to the abolishment of slavery. Many of you keep mentioning Mexicans and other groups in this convo without understanding continental America today wasn't America then. Mexico is also a colonial settler country by Spain. The native populations have existed in these lands for thousands of years, so there are no Mexicans or Native Americans. The United States territory bought slaves to this continent in 1619. The westward expansion wasn't until 2.5 centuries later. The enslaved population built the wealth of America for those 250 years. So Americans had the ability to buy Louisiana, buy Mexico, and expand the country. No one else did this. The westward expansion started in 1801 and ended in 1861, was the rapid territorial growth of the United States from the Mississippi River to the Pacific Ocean, driven by the ideology of manifest destiny. It was then that the United States took vast amounts of land from Mexico, primarily through the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, which ended the Mexican-American War and ceded over 520,000 square miles, creating the Mexican Cession, including now California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona. This expansion caused the forced removal, destruction of culture, and confinement of Native American populations to reservations. When we're having these conversations, it's absolutely imperative that you have a grasp on American history and timelines to accurately reflect what's being discussed, because while immigrants absolutely developed America, Black Americans and their free labor are wholly responsible for the wealth that America built and made it the nation that it is today. This doesn't negate the later contributions of immigrants, but we have to tell the story correctly.
So I just came across a video from a Nigerian American man who was explaining how Shabuzi's speech at the Grammys, talking about how immigrants built America, how Black Americans are taking it out of context because there's so much distrust in our community and in our country. Me, as a Black American, I'm taking that as him saying, you guys just have so much trust issues because that's not what he meant. Like, you guys just need to relax. Unfortunately, you guys are responding to his speech this way because the climate that this country is in. Again, to me, this is me personally, as a Black American, I am offended by Shabuzi's statement and offended by this man's response to Black Americans' response. I want to address a couple of things regarding Shabuzi's speech. I think it is once again so disrespectful and belittling for anyone to comment on Black Americans' response to Shabuzi's statement, stating that immigrants built this country, because it is wrong. And when we Black Americans point that out, when we say that is not true, these are the facts, the response to us is like, ugh, again? You guys always have to center yourselves. This isn't the time to be doing this. Shut up. So when is the time? Because it seems that anytime we try to correct people on American history, on Black history, we're told to be quiet. It is never, ever, ever the wrong time to provide an accurate version of history. It is never going to be the wrong time to tell the truth. It is never going to be the wrong time to educate someone on facts. It will always be the wrong time to allow someone to run off with false narrative and then repeat that false narrative to major audiences. The second thing I find offensive are all the people going, you guys know what he meant. You guys just want something to be mad about. How would we know what he meant? He didn't say Black Americans built the foundation of this country on top of stolen land, had to fight for civil rights, which allowed for immigrants of color to then come here and build on top of the foundation they built, and it helped sustain this country. He didn't say that. So how would I know that's what he meant? He said immigrants built this country. Why would I know that's what he meant? That's not what he said. So yes, he's going to be corrected. There's going to be criticism. And when y'all allow shit like that to slide, all it does is further the divide. And someone is telling an inaccurate story of history in a time where history is being erased, specifically Black history. When that is happening, you need to correct them immediately. You need to educate them immediately. You don't wait. You don't wait just because, oh, we're in a moment where immigrants are the center of danger. Yes, they are. But that doesn't give the excuse to then give false narratives. It just doesn't. You can center immigrants. You can prioritize immigrants while still telling an accurate version of history, while still giving credit and appreciation to the people who suffered before they got here. It's very frustrating. And this is what I mean. When you let shit like that happen, it just builds resentment, builds distrust. At no moment should we ever excuse the erasure of a group and their contributions and their history. Just like we should not allow it for immigrants.
Black people are not immigrants. Therefore, immigrants did not build this country. Enslaved Black people built this country. Verbiage is everything. And it's very important that we nip this in the bud now, because this is exactly how history gets rewritten and erasure happens. Someone coming to a country to seek asylum or just because they want a better life for them and then the family that comes after them is not the same as enslaved people being captured and brought to a country as a commodity and exploited for that same work. I will not stand by and have y'all try to lump my ancestors into a category of immigrant as if they had a choice to come here. That's literally how history gets erased. Double backing on verbiage is everything. It is very important for young children to not sit up here and see and hear Black people being called as immigrants. Because what are they gonna grow up to do? They're gonna grow up to think of Black people as, oh, they came here willingly. Like slavery wasn't that bad. They were here and they just came here for a better life. No. And what are they gonna teach their children and their children's children and their children? Once again, that's how history gets rewritten. Need I remind y'all, a lot of other races of people would not be able to come here had our ancestors and relatives not fought for civil rights. Like, y'all just act like civil rights just was like, that just wasn't a thing. That was freaking huge. Like, are y'all kidding me? And now y'all trying to sit up here and erase us as if like we just migrated over here for... No. Immigrants may be at the forefront of doing the services and labor that Americans feel like they're too good to do, but those same services keep the country going. However, they did not build this country. Let's not do that. That's what we are just not going to do.
So many foreigners will come to this country and look down on Black Americans like we're like the scumbags of the earth and like turn their noses up at us and be racist towards us. And then all of a sudden, when they feel like they're in some type of debacle or they need some type of help,
Now they're looking at us like, oh, we're supposed to be standing in solidarity. We're all POCs. It's like, well, first of all, more importantly, there is no country that you can go to on this earth where you don't have to have some type of visa or there's not some type of immigration law. So if you're in a country, any country, illegally, then at some point you're probably going to get caught and you're probably going to be deported. So why wouldn't America be any different? And my thing is this, like, if you're burning American flags, but you're fighting to live on American soil, like you're burning the flag like as if you hate America, but you want to live in America. You're fighting and you're upset because you want to live here. Now I can see, like, if we're at war and you burn the American flag, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And you're on your own soil and you're burning American flags. I get it. But you're fighting to stay here illegally and burning the American flag because you want to live in a country that has freedoms and opportunities that your country is not able to provide you. They're separating families. Families are getting torn apart. It's like, that's what happens when you break the law. That's what happens. Just like if you were to go to jail, you would be separated from your family and you would have to go to jail. It's the same thing. Like, you're here illegally. You didn't do things the right way. You let your visa expire or whatever. Just do what you're supposed to do like everybody else has to, and everything will be fine.
Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you are doing great from wherever you're watching me from. Now, if you have been watching Minister Louis Farrakhan, you understand that Louis Farrakhan has often framed the Black American struggle as the foundational to the expansion of rights and opportunities in the United States. This includes those that later benefited immigrant communities. In his speeches and in his public addresses, he has argued that the civil rights victories achieved through the sacrifices of Black Americans has reshaped the U.S. laws and societies in ways that opened doors for many other groups. Within this perspective, his warnings to immigrants is less about hostility, and is trying to just give a direction and remind all these immigrants that Black people are not your enemies. At least that's one thing you need to understand. Because if they were your enemies, you wouldn't have been here. Right? He's trying to call for historical awareness of the long fight against racial segregation, disenfranchisement, and systemic discrimination. He's really trying to make sense to them. And he's trying to make them see that Black Americans are not your enemy in this case. Now, what's really central to this concept is the idea that landmark civil rights reforms such as the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act transformed the legal framework of the country. And these reforms dismantled formal segregation, and they prohibited discrimination in employment, in education, and in public commodities. Understand that Black people didn't just make it possible for you to stay here. They made it possible for you to become successful in the United States. Why? They started fighting for your voting rights through Voting Rights Act. They also started to fight for your discrimination in employment. They started to fight for your education, immigrants. They started to also foster your public accommodation, because remember, you're just getting in the United States. You don't know how the accommodation policies goes. It is Black people that went on the street to do that. And so it's important to understand the sacrifice. It is important to understand the fight that Black Americans have put to make this possible. Now, the broader anti-discrimination principles embedded in the laws also created a more accessible social and economic landscape for immigrants arriving in subsequent decades. Additionally, or to add on top of what Black people have done, there is this aspect that I want to talk about. Changes in immigration policies, particularly the Immigration and Nationality Act, were influenced by moral and political climate shaped by the civil rights movement. Understand that Louis Farrakhan and other Black scholars have argued that the global image of the United States during the Cold War, amid criticism of its racial inequalities, it pressured lawmakers to reform immigration laws that had previously favored European immigrants. And in this interpretation, the struggle for Black liberation indirectly contributed to more inclusive immigration system, right? And at that time, um, Mr. Louis Farrakhan's critique, it often centers on tension that rise when segments of immigrant community distance themselves from Black Americans or adopt prevailing anti-Black stereotypes in an effort to assimilate with whiteness. And he suggests that distancing overlooks shared experiences of marginalized and the historical groundwork laid by the Black activism. So its rhetoric emphasizes solidarity among oppressed groups rather than competition for social status or resources. Also, another layer in this is that this argument involves economic participation. Black Americans, through boycotts, protests, and political mobilization, challenged exclusionary labor markets and discriminatory housing practices. Now, as barriers were slowly being lowered and opportunities started coming up, the opportunities were starting to expand across industries and neighborhoods. Farrakhan's implies that immigrants entered these spaces and benefited from the struggles that predated their arrival. And therefore, they should show some respect to the Black community than condensation, right? However, it is also important to contextualize this with a broader scholarly debate. Understand that historians note that immigration patterns are influenced by multiple factors: global conflicts, economic conditions, US labor demands, geopolitical strategies, while the civil rights movement undeniably reshaped American society. It functioned alongside other structural forces. So, and I think it's just right for Minister Louis Farrakhan to always remind all these immigrants and tell them that Black people are not your enemy, and remind them that this is a fight, that it's not worth it, right? People should come into an agreement. At least what I understand that Black people need is respect. So when all these immigrants who are coming to the United States, they should give respect and acknowledge the fact that it is Black Americans that made it possible for them to be where they are right now. So brothers and sisters, I don't really know what like you have to say about this, but that was honestly what I was thinking about this issue, right? So please let me know what you really think about this video. Again, I'm just reminding you to please subscribe to the channel. You can join my membership and really get to see what I can offer you, right? But until then, I'm hoping to see you on my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.